should we let people rely on intuition, or should we develop a culture of using models and gadgets in helping people make better decisions? Very quickly, we had 5 experts who spoke in the video. Delane Hampton, somebody who spent a number of years at Procter & Gamble trying to help managers make better decisions, actually came out saying no, that perhaps that's not the best idea, that managers actually trump a model. Professor Min Zhao also said no to models, that in fact intuition is better. Professor Claire Tsai, who you saw earlier, actually supported models, saying that we know that there's a lot of research showing that people have difficulty making decisions, aggregating information. Same theme echoed by Sarah Morandi from Google Canada. And finally, Kelly Peters, who is a consultant and CEO at BE Works, also making the point that we have an opportunity here to develop better models to help people make better decisions. So that was what the expert opinions were. 2 people on the panel said no to models, 3 supported them. Now, as I said earlier, this debate tends to be a fairly heated debate. So on one level, I think there is a lot of evidence that shows that there are some domains, and we've seen a lot of this discussion in week 6 of our BE 101X class. There are some domains, predictable environments, stable environments, environments where there is enough data about cues that can capture what the final judgment is going to look like. These are environments where in fact we have fairly good evidence to suggest that models can certainly outperform intuition, that in fact you can model intuition and use that to bootstrap your judgments. But the notion of models potentially replacing human beings evokes a fair bit of passion. So a lot of people come out and say, well, no, this is something inhuman about it. There is something missing, and I think that's certainly the case. So as we discussed in week 6, models are great at being systematic. They're great at combining information systematically, but they only know what the manager tells it. And so I think that is obviously one big limitation of models. And so I guess the big questions that we want to think through here in this debate is, what's the best way in which we can actually use models without offending people? You obviously don't want to do that, but thinking through ways in which they can help improve decision making. So here are a few specific thoughts. In week 6, we talked a lot about the combination of intuition plus models. We looked at an example of a 50-50 combination where you let the model make a judgment, you let the manager make a judgment, you simply combine those 2 judgments. We need to think about ways in which we can better incorporate manager's judgment and expert's judgment, a policymaker's judgment into a model. And that could simply be a 50-50 type of approach, or maybe there is a specific variable in the model that a expert can input, or perhaps there's some sort of an anchoring and adjustment process where the model makes a prediction or a judgment or a decision, and the manager has the ability to anchor on that and adjust it. But any intervention that simply gets a manager, gets an expert to look at the data produced by, or look at the result produced by a model, I think would be helpful, because it simply forces the manager to look at that output, and who knows, there is something interesting there because it is the product of a systematic process. The other thing that we looked at in week 6 was we looked at a different range of strategies for helping people make better decisions. It started off on the top with just providing people with data, and all the way at the bottom with sort of these full-fledged decision support systems. And I think provision of data might be an interesting way to start thinking through where to use models, where to use tools and gadgets and apps to help people make better decisions. So one of our experts, Sarah Morandi, works for a company, Google, that actually is in the business of basically providing data. Look at GPS data, you could look at Google Trends. Likewise, look at examples like Amazon, where there is a lot of data that the website can curate and provide people. We need to think a little bit about tools like that that can help people make better decisions. Can we provide people data on their own consumption, on their own usage, on what the average consumer is doing? Does that in fact help improve decision making? And then finally, the last point I would make in this debate is the idea that today we have the ability to take models or to take computational devices or apps along with us on our smartphones. So all of us have a smartphone that might look like this. It's got a pretty sophisticated computation engine. It is mobile, it connects to the internet. And by using technologies where we can actually get data from what we tell the smartphone, from what the smartphone learns from the internet, and perhaps from its location, the ability that gives us to produce models is absolutely stunning. So think about ways in which we could create models, create apps that could educate people, that could give people more data, that could give people more helpful hints in terms of how to make decisions, or in fact make decisions on the part of the individual itself, on behalf of the individual. And I think you have the entire spectrum of possibilities in front of you. So broadly speaking, in this course, week 5, we spent a lot of time talking about nudging, creating a safe environment, creating a situation where you nudge people towards making a good choice. In week 6, we've talked about how we could potentially harness the technologies that we have available to us and the simple models that we talked about to help people improve their decision making. This is your classic rebias and debias story all over again. With models, I think we have the opportunity to help people make better choices, and we should simply figure out how to best leverage that opportunity without offending our target consumers.